The debate about greatness in boxing has always been complicated, and few comparisons generate as much heat as when Terence "Bud" Crawford's name gets placed alongside Floyd Mayweather Jr. Both men are undefeated. Both dominated multiple divisions, both mastered the art of controlling opponents, and both have left their mark on history. Yet recent events have revived the argument in ways nobody could have imagined a few years ago. Crawford's victory over Canelo Alvarez at super middleweight not only gave him undisputed status in a third weight division, but also forced boxing fans and analysts to revisit a question that seemed untouchable. Could Crawford actually be greater than Mayweather at his peak? Crawford's unanimous decision win over Canelo Alvarez shook the sport. Canelo had been the face of boxing for over a decade, with nearly 70 fights, countless titles, and victories against some of the biggest names in the game. For Crawford to move up 2 weight classes and not just compete but control the fight against him was remarkable. Analysts pointed to the way he switched stances with ease, moved intelligently, and mixed aggression with defense in perfect balance. He outboxed Canelo, outthought him, and imposed his will in a way few fighters ever had. Observers said Crawford made one of the best fighters of his generation look ordinary, which is a statement in itself. Some commentators began comparing Crawford's performance against Canelo with Mayweather's earlier win over the Mexican star in 2013. Mayweather had beaten Canelo by majority decision in a fight where his defensive genius was on full display, neutralizing a young but dangerous opponent. Yet some argued that Crawford did it even better. Unlike Floyd, who relied heavily on defense and counters, Crawford stood his ground, traded when necessary, and still outscored Canelo while looking comfortable in every round. For those analysts, this was proof that Crawford had surpassed Mayweather's achievements inside the ring. Bob Arum even suggested that Crawford's ambidexterity and complete skill set might give him the edge when comparing the two legends. Of course, not everyone agreed. There were voices saying Canelo's weight and power still made him too dangerous for Crawford in theory. Some insisted that Crawford's ability to win at 168 pounds was more about timing than pure superiority, since Canelo had already been through wars and carried years of wear on his body. They argued that Canelo at his prime would have hurt Crawford badly and that Bud would not have been able to inflict the same damage in return. To them, Canelo's natural size and strength remained a huge factor that Crawford could not overcome if the Mexican were at his very best. In the middle of this conversation came Boots Ennis's name, one of the hottest prospects at welterweight. People asked whether Ennis would stand a chance against Crawford at 147 pounds. The general response was that while Ennis is a great talent with speed, power, and future promise, Crawford at welterweight looks unbeatable. Analysts admitted they could not see anyone touching Crawford in that division. His adaptability and ring IQ gave him too many weapons against fighters who might otherwise rely on raw power or athleticism. What stirred the pot even more was Canelo Alvarez himself, who openly admitted after the fight that he believed Crawford was better than Mayweather. Coming from someone who had fought both men, this comment carried enormous weight. Canelo explained that Crawford's ability to switch stances, mix offense and defense, and adapt in the middle of a fight made him a more complete fighter than Mayweather. He highlighted that Floyd's style, while effective, was more defensive and less aggressive, whereas Crawford combined both sides of the sport. Canelo felt that this ability to hurt opponents as well as outthink them set Crawford apart. Supporters of Crawford echoed Canelo's sentiment. They pointed out that while Mayweather perfected the art of hitting without being hit, he was often criticized for being overly defensive and cautious. Crawford, by contrast, could box safely while also pressing the action, taking risks, and looking to finish fights. His blend of technique and aggression created a more well-rounded and dangerous fighter. Fans argued that this made him not just a master technician, but also a true warrior willing to engage, which gave him a unique edge. On the other hand, Mayweather's defenders reminded everyone of his flawless record. 50 wins with 0 losses, 15 major world titles across 5 divisions, and victories over names like Oscar de la Hoya, Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez, and many others. Floyd's resume is filled with champions and legends, and his ability to remain untouched through decades of fights is unparalleled. They emphasize his defensive genius, his unmatched accuracy, and his ability to control fights without taking serious punishment. For them, no one, including Crawford, could claim to be better until they matched Floyd's longevity and the level of competition he overcame. When asked who his toughest opponent was, Mayweather often dismissed the idea that any fight truly challenged him. He admitted that sparring in the gym sometimes gave him harder work than actual fights. He credited his success to constant improvement and striving for perfection. Floyd pointed out that he beat the most world champions in the least number of fights, that he generated the highest pay-per-view gates, earned the most money, and retired with his record intact. To him, these facts were undeniable proof that he was the greatest boxer of all time. He insisted that God only made one thing perfect, and that was his boxing record. Meanwhile, Crawford's achievements continue to grow. With over 18 major world titles across 5 divisions and the distinction of being the first male boxer to become undisputed in 3 different weight classes, his resume speaks loudly. He has beaten elite names such as Errol Spence Jr. and Canelo Alvarez with dominance. His ability to carry power up through the divisions while maintaining speed, timing, and accuracy is unique. Crawford's own view is that none of his wins surprise him. He often says that he already knows what he is capable of. It is the fans and critics who are shocked. He stresses that once he sets his sights on something, he believes in himself completely and only needs the opportunity to prove it. Judges in the Canelo fight scored it unanimously in Crawford's favor, with totals of 116, 112, 115, 113, and 115, 113. Despite suffering a cut from a head clash, Crawford never lost control. His footwork, jabs, and counters neutralized Canelo's pressure, while his composure under fire prevented the Mexican star from ever finding consistent success. The victory marked a new milestone in boxing history, and Roy Jones Jr. described it as proof that Crawford belonged among the top fighters of all time. Jones praised Crawford's adaptability, timing, and ability to dismantle opponents across multiple weight classes, comparing him to himself during his prime. He acknowledged that Bud might not have had the same depth of opposition as some past legends, but believed his performances showed greatness beyond doubt. Other analysts weighed in as well. Keith Thurman, initially skeptical about Crawford moving up in weight, admitted that Bud's performance against Canelo changed his mind. Thurman described the fight as a boxing clinic, noting how Crawford used his jab, footwork, and ring generalship to freeze Canelo and prevent him from unleashing his usual power. He pointed out how Crawford was able to both hit and not get hit, the essence of boxing itself. Thurman gave Crawford full credit for proving him wrong and demonstrating brilliance in the ring. Fernando Vargas also confessed he had underestimated Crawford before the fight. He admitted he thought Canelo's strength and experience would be too much, but Crawford's flawless technique and ring control surprised him. Vargas praised Bud's discipline, accuracy, and dominance, conceding that he had been wrong and that Crawford proved himself the superior fighter on the night. His son, Fernando Vargas Jr., added that Canelo's long career, with his heavy schedule of nearly 70 fights, may have drained some of his explosiveness and sharpness. While still great, Canelo may not be the same devastating fighter he once was, which could have played a role in Crawford's success. Al Bernstein emphasized Crawford's unpredictability as one of his greatest strengths. Unlike many fighters who follow a set pattern, Crawford changes his approach constantly. Sometimes he boxes from range, sometimes he pressures, and he regularly switches between orthodox and southpaw stances. This adaptability makes it almost impossible for opponents to anticipate his next move. Against someone like Canelo, who relies heavily on timing and counterpunching, this unpredictability created major problems. Bernstein highlighted that this flexibility was one of the main reasons Crawford was able to control the fight. Teddy Atlas added to the praise, describing Crawford as special not just because of his skills, but also because of his mental gifts. Atlas pointed out his timing, instincts, ability to read opponents, and willingness to adjust mid-fight. He compared Crawford's craftiness and ring IQ to that of past greats and suggested that his heart and mentality also set him apart. Atlas argued that Crawford's ability to move up weight divisions without losing effectiveness is a rare quality, proving his uniqueness among elite fighters. Not everyone was convinced by the comparisons to Mayweather, however. Jeff Mayweather, Floyd's uncle, offered a more cautious perspective. He suggested that Canelo's praise of Crawford might have been partly strategic, aimed at elevating his own legacy by making his opponent look even greater.